Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie, and welcome to my first grading video of the year. I've done this for the past 2 years, where I have picked out all of the really good cards that everybody wants, and I tried to put a grade on them. People really seem to enjoy it, and they say that it maybe helps them pick out maybe which cards that they want, which ones they don't, and it just helps to put their attributes into one overall grade that isn't really their overall attribute, because it's a little more stringent and a little more strict than the overall grading system in MLB The Show. So what that is called the final assessment grade, or the FAG rating. So everybody is always like that. So anyways, let me explain before we get into this how the FAG rating works. And it's basically like this. I weight each individual group of attributes. I rate them separately and differently based on position. So for offensive players, the 5 main groups are contact and vision, power, fielding, arm strength / accuracy, and speed. And then for pitching, it's basically hit per 9 and K per 9, walk per 9, and control. And this year I'm adding in home run per 9 as well into that equation because it matters now. Then their stuff, that means their velo and their break, and then their pitch selection. And it's a little bit different for relief pitchers and starting pitchers too. And then out of those 5 attributes for offensive players, it's weighted differently for each position. So for first baseman, contact and power is going to be way more important than fielding. And for a center fielder, all 5 attributes are going to be relatively important. So yeah, that's basically how it works. The only difference this year is that I am adding a utility bonus at the very end when I'm grading, and it's basically just for how versatile you are, how many positions you can play, because I do think that has a lot of value. So I guess theoretically the perfect score that you could get would be a 10.5, but I don't think anybody is going to crack 10, at least not anytime soon. Maybe they come out with a super utility, like super utility player at some point that is able to do it, but I doubt it. So for right now, that's basically how it works, and let's get into the video. Okay, first up we have Brooks Robinson, who plays third base. So offense is going to be weighted a little bit more heavily, but defense still matters a lot in this rating. And he's not bad offensively. From a contact and vision standpoint, he almost got a perfect rating. It's just that his contact was a little bit below where it could have been, so it wasn't quite perfect. And then the big doc on this card is going to be the power. He has some power, 78, 79, that's fine. It's no big deal at all. I mean, you can definitely, I would say that this guy is a power threat, but he's just not going to be in the upper echelon of power hitting players. As far as his fielding and his arm strength and everything, he's perfect. No point deductions or anything like that. Doesn't have a ton of speed, so, you know, you may want to take that into consideration. There are a few speedy third basemen out there, or maybe speedy shortstops that you can play at third base, but if you're looking for a guy that is going to be a solid hitter along with the elite of the elite defenders, this is probably a good card to go to. I kind of compare this guy to every year they come out with a really good Mike Schmidt card. The Schmidt card is like the Brooks Robinson with phenomenal defense, but more power and less contact. And this card has more contact, less power, and still the elite defense. So usually it kind of comes down to between those two, plus maybe Chipper's best card at the end of the year for who's going to be your in-game third baseman. And it just depends on what you value. So overall, this card, it's a great card, but it's not the elite of the elite in the signatures. And I ended up giving him a grade of an 8.8. Now, I know that might seem a little low for a signature level card, but you're going to see some that are even lower, and that's because this year I'm grading a lot more strictly, just because there's so many cards that are really good this year that I have to have some room there to get to the really great cards, the ones that come close to a 10.0. So this card is an 8.8. Let's move on. Next up, we have the 99 overall Frank Thomas, and this is your prototypical first first baseman, terrible defense, but a monster at the plate, absolute monster. He almost got perfect scores with power and with contact. Not quite. I deducted him a couple points just because there are some hitters that are a little bit better, not much, but a little bit. And as far as his fielding goes, that's where he's really going to lose a lot of points and really start to come down a good bit. But overall, this card is great. He's a monster at the plate. And if you don't really care about defense at first base, which this year defense is a lot more important, so it might be something that you take into consideration. But if you just want a big power bat at first base, this is your man. And for those reasons, I ended up giving this guy a FAG rating of 9.0. Next up is one of my personal favorites. It's the 99 overall Pudge Rodriguez, and this card has everything that you would ever want in a catcher. I mean, he is elite defensively. I mean, there is no flaw defensively on this card. He has great blocking, best arm probably in the game. He has great fielding to go along with it, and then at the plate, he's just going to destroy pitches. I mean, he has 110, 119 contact with 113 vision, a huge PCI. He has mid-80s power, which isn't the most. I mean, I'm sure that if we come out with a signature Mike Piazza, it's going to have a little bit more, but that's still a lot of freaking pop for a catcher. And it's going to end up being one of, if not the best offensive catcher in the game, as well as the best defensive catcher in the game. This card is really tough to get, but it's totally worth it, especially when you consider the fact that this guy has some speed to go along with all the other things. For a catcher, 72-61, you can do damage on the base paths with that. So for those reasons, I ended up giving the Pudge Rodriguez a FAG of a 9.4. He's just, the power deduction was just, I had to take off a little bit there, but the rest of it was amazing. Next up, we have another card that's kind of a personal favorite of mine, the 99 overall Joe Morgan. Offensively, this card really isn't as impressive as the other ones, just because all the other ones are like 100 plus and every hitting attribute. But I think this card might have as much, if not more value than some of those cards, just simply because he does everything so well. He has 124 vision, so you're going to have a huge PCI. He has 101-98 contact. That's tremendous. And then he has a great bit of power versus righties and a good bit versus lefties. One issue with this card, though, is that he is a little bit shorter, so your PCI is going to be a little more scrunched in, as well as your strike zone, and it can make it a little harder to hit sometimes, but I think that that is a perfectly reasonable trade-off to get this card's attributes, because he's also a great fielder. 74 arm strength isn't the best, and I did have to dock him a few points on that, but he is a second baseman, so it's not like it matters a ton. And then he has 94-99 speed and stealing, which is just, you know, I mean, he's one of the fastest cards in the game. He's going to be a nightmare on the base paths to deal with. So for all those reasons, I ended up giving this guy a final score of a 9.1, which I think is reasonable. You know, he got docked on the contact power and arm strength enough that it brought him just a little bit down from that elite of the elite area. Next up, we have another second baseman. This one is a lot better from a pure offensive standpoint. I mean, he has perfect contact, perfect vision, and then upper 90s power. I mean, that's tremendous. This guy is just a huge threat at the plate. But where this card is really going to struggle is defensively. He's not as elite as some of the other signature cards defensively, and he does play a position where defense matters a lot. Now, he does have some speed that can make up for that a little bit, and but he also doesn't have a lot of stealing, which means that he might not be the best on the base pass. He'll probably be okay, but he's not going to be tremendous. So, you know, I did end up giving this guy a small utility bonus, a +2 utility bonus, because he can play third base and shortstop as well, and that's actually kind of rare in these signature cards. So for all those reasons, plus the utility bonus, I ended up giving this guy a score of a 9.2. I do think that the offensive capabilities make him slightly better than the Joe Morgan, along with the fact that he can play multiple positions. So that was really the difference, was the utility bonus there. So yeah, Rogers Hornsby, overall of a 9.2. Okay, next up to me is probably the least impressive of all of the signature cards, but it's still a great card. The 99 overall Duke Snider. Yeah, against righties, he is a monster. 115, 110. Against lefties, he's still really good with 93, 83, but those two numbers did bring his overalls in those two categories down a good bit. And he does have that vision, which will mean that you'll have a big PCI, but I do think you might struggle with lefties against this card, more so than some of the other cards. And then defensively, he's just really good. He's not great or elite. He doesn't really stand out in any way. He doesn't have a phenomenal arm. He's not the rangiest guy. He's got plenty of range. Like I said, he's really good, but he's not going to be elite in that category. And then on speed, he has 74 speed, which is fine, but he also has 47 stealing, which means he's not going to be much of a threat to steal or anything like that. It's a great card. It really is. And I did give him a small utility bonus because he can play anywhere in the outfield. That'll be a common among outfielders usually. But he does get that small 1-point bump. And overall, I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.4. Which, yes, that's low, but I do think that there are some deficiencies in this card that make him not as appealing as some of the other ones. Alright, next up we have the 99 Tony Gwynn, the contact monster. Perfect contact, perfect vision, tremendous. Then he has basically perfect fielding and arm strength. I mean, it's a little below perfect, but it's still, I mean, one of the best fielders in the game coming from right field. Now, one knock on this card is that he does play right field, so power is much more important than it would be if he played somewhere like center field. So I did have to dock him a few points on that power, actually several points on that power, because he just doesn't have a ton. But he does everything else so well. I mean, he's a huge base running threat. He's a monster defensively. He's going to make so much contact with the ball. He just doesn't have a ton of power. That's the big knock on this card. And for those reasons, I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.6. Okay, next up, we're getting into the stupid cards now. I mean, this 99 overall Willie Mays, this is basically like the Pepe Alazar from a couple years ago. This card does everything, and it does everything at an elite level. I mean, he has plus 110 contact versus both sides. Almost that versus for power, 116 vision. This card is probably the best offensive card in the game right now. Then defensively, he plays center field, so he has 98 fielding, 95 arm strength, 97 accuracy, 95 reaction, speed, 92, 90 stealing. It's incredible. This card does everything well. Plus, he gets a +1 utility bonus for being an outfielder that can play all three spots. It may seem like I'll give this guy a perfect score, but I didn't. I ended up docking him 2 points and then adding the 1-point utility bonus. I docked him in contact and in power just because it's not perfect. And there will be a Babe Ruth and a Ted Williams that'll come out that'll probably have 125 everything. There will probably be a couple cards like that in this year's game. And this guy is almost there, almost, but I just had to dock him 1 point for each just because there are going to be guys that are you know, a little bit better than that, just slightly better than that offensively. But overall, I still think this is going to be the best card in the game, even by the end of the year. And I gave him an overall fag of 9.9. Okay, now let's do a few pitchers. First up, we have the Nolan Ryan. Tremendous per nines, not great walk per nine, but he does make up for it a little bit with that home run per nine, so I have to give him credit there. He has basically perfect velo and break, so there's no problems there. Maybe a slight issue with pitch selection and things like that, just because he doesn't really have much that moves horizontally. It's mostly vertical stuff, and that can be a problem sometimes, especially when you find guys who would struggle against sliders, but they can hit the vertical stuff pretty easily. So I did have to dock him a little bit there, but not a ton. And but really, from a stuff standpoint, he kind of makes up for it from the fact that he has such great speed differential between his fastball and his changeup. I mean, 99 to 78, 21 mile per hour delta. I'm sure that can grow up to about a 23 mile an hour delta. I mean, he also has that 95 mile an hour sinker, which is just a disgusting pitch. I mean, it's so hard to hit. So for all those reasons, I ended up giving Nolan Ryan a fag of a 9.0. The walk per nine really did kind of hurt him in the ratings, plus the lack of a horizontally moving pitch. But still one of the best pitchers in the game right now. Now let's move on to the Kershaw, and I like this card personally better than the Nolan Ryan, and it's because he just does everything well. He has 107 hit per 9, 113 K per 9. You're going to be fine there. It's not perfect, but it's still really, really, really good. He also has much better walk per 9 and home run per 9 and control than that Nolan Ryan does, so he's not going to get docked points there at all. His stuff isn't quite as good, but he still has 90 velocity with 99 break. That's tremendous. And then his pitch selection, though, is much, much better. He can throw a 95 mile an hour fastball with an 83 mile an hour changeup for a 12 mile per hour delta. You can also mix in that 12-6 curveball that he throws at 71 miles per hour, so that's a 24 mile per hour delta. That's ridiculous. They also gave him a sinker, which in my opinion kind of vaults this guy up into the elite of the elite territory, in my opinion. So yeah, that one pitch can make such a huge difference just because it's so hard to hit for most people. Plus, he's a lefty, and those are kind of a novelty, and they can be a little tougher to hit for some people. So anyways, for all those reasons, I ended up giving Clayton Kershaw a fag of a 9.6. Okay, and the last card that we're going to talk about, the 96 overall Trevor Hoffman. This card is a beast. In my opinion, he's either the best or the second best reliever in the game right now, depending on how you view that Goose Gossage. But this card's a monster. For a relief pitcher, he has some of the best control in the game. 94 walk per 9 is insane for a reliever. Then he also has the great hit in K per 9. And the one knock that people may see on this card is that he doesn't throw that hard, only 71 velocity. But when you consider the fact that he has a 73 mile an hour changeup to go with it, the nastiest changeup in the game by far, that also has just ridiculous break on it. You kind of start to see that velo doesn't matter that much. You can also kind of change speeds with that 89 mile an hour curveball, 85 slider, and then that big looping 74 mile an hour curveball. This guy just changes speeds so well that it makes up for any overall velo deficiencies that he might have. For those reasons, I ended up giving the Trevor Hoffman a fag of a 9.2. Okay guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you're new. And yeah, that'll do it guys. I will be streaming tonight. Sorry I didn't stream last night. I planned on it, but I was a little too, you know, just after the day I had yesterday. But we will be streaming tonight, so come and check that out. Between 8 and 9, maybe 9:30 is when we'll be starting. So yeah, I'll see you there, and until then, peace.